From translation, TLB the Living Bible this 127 day of the year. Today we are reading passages 1 Chronicles 18-21, 1 Chronicles chapter 18, verses 1 to 17. Now after this, David defeated the Philistines and brought them under his control. He captured the city of Gath and the surrounding villages. David also defeated the Moabites, and they became his servants, bringing him tribute money. David's army marched to establish his kingdom along the Euphrates River, where he fought and defeated Hadadezer king of Zobah in a great battle at Hamath. David captured 1,000 chariots, 7,000 charioteers, and 20,000 foot soldiers. He hamstrung all but 100 of the chariot horses, leaving just enough for a small chariot force. When the Arameans of Damascus came to help Hadadezer, David killed 22,000 of them in battle. Then David stationed his soldiers in Damascus, and the Arameans became his subjects, bringing him tribute money, and the Lord gave David victory wherever he went. David took the gold shields that had been carried by Hadadezer's officers and brought them back to Jerusalem. From the cities of Beta and Berotai, which had belonged to Hadadezer, King David captured huge amounts of bronze. When King Toi of Hamath heard that David had defeated Hadadezer's entire army, he sent his son Joram to congratulate David and to thank him for his successful wars against Hadadezer. For Hadadezer had been at war with Toi, Joram brought with him many gifts of silver, gold, and bronze. King David dedicated all these gifts to the Lord, along with the silver and gold he had captured from other nations, from Edom and Amalek, from the spoils he had taken from the Arameans who were living in Zobah. The Lord gave David victory wherever he went. David reigned over all Israel, and he was a fair and just ruler for all his people. Joab son of Zeruiah was commander of the army. Jehoshaphat son of Ahilud was state recorder, and Zadok son of Ahitub and Abimelech son of Abiathar were priests. Shavsha was secretary, and Benaiah son of Jehoiada was commander of the Cherethites and Pelethites. And David's sons held the highest positions in the royal court. But David didn't count any of the men under 20 years of age, for the Lord had promised to make Israel as numerous as the stars of heaven. 1 Chronicles chapter 19, verses 1 to 19. After this, King Nahash of Ammon died, and his son Hanun became king in his place. David said, "I will show kindness to Hanun son of Nahash, because his father was kind to me." So David sent some of his officials to console Hanun about his father's death. But the Ammonite princes said to Hanun, "Do you think David honors your father just because he sent these men to comfort you? Haven't they come to spy out our land and find its weaknesses?" So Hanun seized David's men, shaved off half the beard of each man, cut off their robes at the hips, and sent them away. When this was reported to David, he sent messengers to meet them, for the men were deeply ashamed. The king said, "Stay at Jericho until your beards have grown again, and then return home." When the Ammonites realized that they had made enemies of David, Hanun and the Ammonites hired 32,000 chariots and a large army from Aram-Maacah and from Zobah, north of Israel. They also hired the kings of Maacah and their armies, who camped near Medeba. And the Ammonites gathered their troops from their cities and joined the attack. When David heard about this, he sent Joab and his entire army of experienced warriors. The Ammonians came out and formed their battle lines at the entrance of the city, while the other armies positioned themselves in the open fields nearby. When Joab saw that he was being attacked from both the front and the rear, he chose his best soldiers from all Israel and positioned them to fight the Arameans. He put the rest of the army under the command of his brother Abishai, and they positioned themselves to fight the Ammonites. Joab said, "If the Arameans are too strong for me, you will come to my rescue. But if the Ammonites are too strong for you, I will come to your rescue. Be courageous and let's fight bravely for our people and for the cities of our God, and may the Lord do what is good in his sight." So Joab and his troops advanced to fight the Arameans, and the Arameans fled before them. When the Ammonites saw that the Arameans had fled, they fled before Abishai and retreated into their own city. Then Joab returned to Jerusalem. But when the Arameans saw that they had been defeated by Israel, they sent for reinforcements from beyond the Euphrates River. They sent an army led by Shophach, the commander of Hadadezer's forces. When David was told about this, he mobilized all Israel and crossed the Jordan River to Helam. The Arameans deployed their battle lines and fought against David. The Arameans fled before Israel, and David killed 7,000 of their charioteers and 40,000 foot soldiers. He also killed Shophach, the commander of their army. When Hadadezer's officers saw that they had been defeated by Israel, they made peace with David and became his subjects. After that, the Arameans would no longer help the Ammonites. 1 Chronicles chapter 20, verses 1 to 8. In the spring, when kings normally go to war, Joab led his army and devastated the land of the Ammonites. Then he went and laid siege to their capital city, Rabbah. But David stayed in Jerusalem. When Joab captured Rabbah, he tore down its walls and destroyed it. David removed the crown from the king's head and found that it weighed 75 pounds of gold. And he took many valuable treasures from the city as plunder. He made the people of Rabbah work hard as slaves, using them to cut timber and stone with saws and axes. Then David and all his troops returned to Jerusalem. After the war with the Ammonites, war broke out again with the Philistines. This time Sibbecai the Hushathite killed Sippai, one of the Philistine giants, and the Philistines were subdued. There was another war with the Philistines, and this time Elhanan son of Jair killed Lahmi, the brother of Goliath of Gath. The spear that Elhanan used was as big as a weaver's beam. There was still another war with the Philistines at Gath, where there was a huge man with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 fingers and toes in all. He was also a descendant of the giants. When this giant started insulting the Israelites, Jonathan, David's nephew, killed him. These were all descendants of the giant family of Gath, and they were all killed by David and his men. 1 Chronicles chapter 21, verses 1 to 30. Satan rose up against Israel and tempted David to take a census of the people. So David said to Joab and the army commanders, "Go and count all the people from Beersheba in the south to Dan in the north, and bring me a report. I want to know how many people there are." But Joab replied, "May the Lord make his people 100 times more numerous than they are. My lord the king, why do you want to do this? Why bring this guilt upon Israel?" But the king's command prevailed over Joab's advice, so Joab and his men left and traveled throughout all Israel, and then returned to Jerusalem. Joab reported the census totals to David. There were 1,100,000 soldiers in Israel, and 470,000 in Judah. But Joab didn't include the tribes of Levi and Benjamin in the census, for the king's order was offensive to him. God was displeased with the census, so he punished Israel for it. David said to God, "I have sinned greatly by doing this. But now, I beg you, take away this sin from your servant, for I have acted very foolishly." The Lord spoke to Gad, David's seer, and said, "Go and tell David, I will give you 3 choices. Pick one and I will do it to you." So Gad went to David and said, "The Lord says, choose your punishment, either 3 years of famine throughout the land, or 3 months of destruction while your enemies chase you with their swords, or 3 days of the Lord's sword, pestilence upon the land, with the angel of the Lord destroying people throughout all Israel's territory. Now tell me which answer I should take back to the one who sent me." David replied to Gad, "I'm in great distress. Let me fall into the hands of the Lord, for his mercy is very great. But please don't let me fall into the hands of men." So the Lord sent a plague upon Israel, and 70,000 people died. God sent an angel to Jerusalem to destroy it. But just as the angel was about to strike, the Lord relented from the punishment. He said to the angel who was destroying the people, "Stop, that's enough now." And the angel of the Lord stood by the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. David looked up and saw the angel of the Lord standing between heaven and earth, with a drawn sword stretched out over Jerusalem. Then David and the elders, clothed in rough sackcloth, fell on their faces in worship. David prayed to God, "I am the one who ordered this census. I am guilty of this great sin, but these sheep, what have they done? Let your hand, O Lord my God, be against me and against my family, but please spare your people from this plague." Then the angel of the Lord told Gad to instruct David to go up to the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite and build an altar to the Lord there. So David went up to the threshing floor, as the Lord had commanded through Gad. Ornan looked and saw the angel, and he and his 4 sons hid themselves. Ornan was at work threshing wheat at the time. When David arrived at Ornan's threshing floor, Ornan looked and saw him. Ornan came out from his threshing floor and bowed low before David with his face to the ground. David said to Ornan, "I want to buy this threshing floor so I can build an altar to the Lord on it. Give me the site for the full price, so the plague will stop afflicting the people." Ornan replied to David, "Take it, my lord the king, and do whatever you think is right. See, I'll give the oxen for the burnt offerings, the threshing sledges for the firewood, and the wheat for the grain offering. I'll give it all to you." But King David said to Ornan, "No, I insist on paying you for it at the full price. I will not offer to the Lord that which costs me nothing." So David paid Ornan 600 pieces of gold for the site. David built an altar to the Lord there, and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. Then the Lord answered him by sending fire from heaven to burn up the sacrifices on the altar. David said, "This is the place for the temple of the Lord God, and this is the place for the altar of burnt offerings for Israel." David commanded that the sacrifices be offered to the Lord, burnt offerings and peace offerings. He called out to the Lord, and the Lord answered him by sending fire from heaven to consume the burnt offerings on the altar. David saw that the Lord had answered him at the threshing floor of Ornan, so he sacrificed there. Meanwhile, the tabernacle of the Lord, which Moses had made in the wilderness, and the altar of burnt offerings were still at Gibeon in the hill country. But David could not go there to consult God, for he was afraid of the sword of the angel of the Lord.